We are picking up with the Andrena subgenera. Rob, do you want to introduce yourself? Would you, or we could do that for us, for you?
Sure, I can do that. Yeah, I'm Rob Jean. I'm a senior entomologist for environmental solutions and innovations. That's kind of my daytime job, but mostly I enjoy, identifying and hunting bees. And so that's mainly what I do. And Andrena is my favorite group, and that's why I'm here to talk about it. So
Great. Thanks, Rob. I've known Rob for years too, and has helped with many an earlier version of trying to do classes on bee identification.
and hopefully soon too, we'll be doing some major updates to the Andrena Discover Life Guide. So those
Yeah.
are all in the works and lots
Yeah.
of plans.
Yeah, there is a lot of things afoot there that I think everyone will benefit from and be glad to see.
Well, and let me throw this thing in there in terms of the Discover Life Andrena Guide. I've actually done the grunt work of taking, for the Pacific Northwest, group by group, I have all of the traits for any of the Andrena subgenus, a big spreadsheet. So I can tell you, metallic, these are the subgenera that might be metallic. Pygidial plate sculpture, these are the species that will have that. And it's going to become a sort of key, and I'm going to depend on people like you all to help me sort of troubleshoot it and tell me where I'm going wrong. But I'm moving on it.
Oh, good. Yeah. So yeah, anytime, and this I think will be much more common here in a little bit, but we are happy to have people score unscored species and unscored characters of species, of which most of the Western ones are very lightly scored. They were gone through once at Logan by a group of people, and that was it. And there was no attempt to resolve or add in, some of the LaBerge couplets and things like that would clarify things. So the Western Andrena, although they exist in the guide, are not really highly usable except as sorting, sorting into groups or that kind of stuff. And then you would need to right now take it, as you know, take it on your own, which of course is its own nightmare. But we would love to have those scorings because we can add them and then usability goes up. And ultimately, we can reverse engineer Wally LaBerge's keys to get a complete in the Wally LaBergian mind frame set and his grad students, all that Andrena information, and also have people expand upon how do you tell this from this, which is really where a lot of the action is, because Wally LaBerge's keys are good and often could use a little clarity, as do all of our keys and stuff. So that's something to keep up with. Also, David, just a reminder to put out your new webpage of Andrena characters to the bee monitoring listserv, which would be good because people really could use that.
It's in the chat if you're here.
Okay. But I think for the much larger
yes, for sure.
world, I'm gonna if this is okay with everyone, I'm gonna share and I'm gonna show people a couple things that could be useful in terms of looking up, getting to what are each of the species in the subgenre at the subgenus level. I can't talk when I do two things at once. So if that's okay, if you go to the Andrena key. So in this case, I have the male key up. You will see the key section. Let's say I'm interested in what species of subgenus X are in my area. So you have lots of options here. So you could just do the bees east of the Mississippi and just limit it to that. You could leave it off, and now you're looking at all the bees in North America of a subgenus, which will show you how, or you could say, oh, I only want it for Louisiana, or something like Massachusetts, which certainly has many more species. Whatever you choose there, you can then go down to the subgenus here and you know, click on, let's do one that has a fair number of species like Cnemidandrena, and click on that, and you'll get a list over here for Massachusetts has these 4 species in that subgenus listed. And that's a combination of what's been scored for Massachusetts and what's been scored for that subgenus. I think the subgenus scorings are pretty complete, but you know, mistakes creep in everywhere. So if someone sees something like, oh, hey, that's not in the right subgenus, let us know. For those of you who are trying to do this at home right now, you will see at the bottom Andrena uvulariae show up because until just today, it was in a unassigned category. And so we didn't have a category for it. I've now created one so that it doesn't get confusing when you see Andrena uvulariae popping up every single time you do a search like that. So that's one aspect. And if we go to John Asher's, I think this, I was looking at something here, species page, which I think I overwrote, but I can find quickly. So to find, I'll show people how to get there. So if you go to the Discover Life homepage and click on the bumblebee, you can go, you know, there's several avenues to this, but this is the fastest. You get to the Apoidea page, and this bee species link here is John Asher's really handy system of all of the 20,759 species names he considers to be currently valid. And he has them split up in many different groups. So you can look at them by family, subfamily, country, obviously incomplete in lots of parts of the world, tribes, subtribes, genus, and in this particular case, the subgenus. Now, subgenus is for every single, you can see how long this is, every single subgenus in the world for every single bee species that, bee genus that has subgenera listed. So it's maybe inefficient, but now you can look around the world at what else might be in, let's see, good, Scrapteropsis. And there is the list, 16, and you can see it even matches the numbers here, 16 different kinds. And some of these are US and maybe there's some European, I don't know. Anyway, for those who want to, that's another option. And then today I'll also bring up the collections page in our Flickr site. And it's very actually tricky. And I guess I'll try and get Claire to put a link to it, because you can't really get there by just clicking into Flickr to find collections versus galleries. But we've divided for Bees of Maryland, and anyone can do this for anything. And I think you can grab any picture anywhere in the system to do this. So we can look at Andrenidae, and we have each of the genera there, and we click on Andrena, and there's information. In this particular case, we've added information on what defines Andrena, and then there are species groups that you can click on to pull up a, you know, pictures. And just a different avenue versus going to online and doing a Google search to get to Discover Life species page, or to go through a guide. You can go through that system too and look at the species. So I will stop there and punt it back to Mike and Rob and Dave to see if, or David, and see if they have any additional things to say before we go back to Mike's subgenus key, or Claire.
I don't have anything to add.
Okay, so Mike, take it away, and I'll keep the, if this sounds good, I'll keep the subgenus key up on the Zoom session here. the whatever system we're working on. And if someone wants to take it over and show a picture, for example, David or Rob, Jean, you want something, or anyone else wants me to pull up a picture, or we can also load the scope here to look at something specific, like an actual specimen. So I think we're at this one.
So Mike,
7.
Mike Slater commented a little while back that last week really liked that while we were talking about a character, you gave examples of species to look at, which show the characters that well. So Mike really liked that approach last week, and I think that's kind of what you were getting at there with showing us different ways that we can jump to the bees in a certain subgenus. But just echoing that, keep doing it.
Okay. Sam,
Yeah, so people should be online looking things up and that kind of stuff. I think that's useful in terms of learning.
Okay, just to briefly review what we did last week. We're in the part of the key where we started to look for the pronodal features, and there's a large group of Andrena subgenera that have what we'll just call a modified pronotum. There's a dorsiventral ridge, greater or lesser, and what we call the humeral angle on the pronotum. And we talked about these last week, so that we're still in that part of the key. And there's last week those were fairly small groups, subgenera that had relatively few species in them. That's going to change today, because we're going to tackle some the larger groups again that all have the pronodal modifications in both sexes, but they're just a larger number of species in the subgenera. So we stopped at last week. We stopped at Holandrena, which has the single species Miserabilis, widespread throughout the whole country. Maybe a complex of species rather than just one. So that's where we stopped. And then that was at couplet 6, and so the next couplet is couplet 7, and this one's a little. I kind of apologize for the wording, but there's a kind of a reason to it. So couplet 7 starts with the hypostomal carina lateral arms. Well, what is that? The hypostomal carina the hypostome is on the underside of the head, and it's where the mouth parts reside. It's a cavity, and all bees have that. And along the margins of that hypostome, that cavity, there's sometimes a more or less carina or a ridge that parallels the margins. And then as that concavity goes towards the mandibles, all of a sudden there's a right angle turn. So the hypostomal carinae, or the hypostome, that diverges from parallel to totally divergent right angles. With Gonandrena, those two arms are similar in length, and that can be very hard to see. But if you can see it and you recognize it, that's pretty much all you need to know. The reason the word "or" is bolded and underlined right after that is because I recognize you can't always see that. So you have a group of other characters that together can define Gonandrena. And so it's a list of 4 or 5. And so if you can't see the hypostomal carina well, or you're not confident that you're looking at it, you're not sure what it is, then you can look at these other things. And so the cheeks, the margin of the cheeks, Egina, in most of the female Gonandrenas in the east, it to some extent has a sharp edge. It's carinate up top. That's kind of unusual. Not most Andrena species don't have that. And the propodial triangle is roughened. It's not smooth. It's not shiny. It's not dramatically rough and reticulate, but it's thoroughly roughened and reticulate in a small way. Last week we talked about the propodial corbicula on the sides of the propodium, whether it was complete, incomplete, how the different varieties. With Gonandrena females, there is no anterior fringe, so the propodial corbicula is incomplete, and it doesn't have that anterior fringe, and there aren't many hairs within it. And then there's a few other things. Maybe the best field character is that they're all specialists on shrubby dogwoods. not flowering dogwood, but the shrubby ones like Cornus obliqua and several others. That's their primary source of pollen. So if you collect an Andrena off Cornus, the first thing you ought to think about is, well, I wonder if this is Gonandrena, because it's very likely that it is. I rambled a bit there, but any other, Rob?
I think, Sam, are you pulling up the hypostomal?
I've got some specimens here, and I'll try and do that without interfering. Maybe, Claire, do you want to take over the showing of Mike's key, and I'll try and load up a specimen so that people don't have to see me twiddling around with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't.
They also and as Mike alluded to, I think they have a very kind of distinct look and feel. Like when you look at it after looking at these, fragilis, which is here the most common one, and some of the others, it's like, oh, no, that's one of that. I just think of them as the specialists on Cornus, the Swida group.
Right. Yeah, and they can be fairly common. About 4 species in the East, I think, maybe 5, 4 that I can think of.
Yeah, 4 or 5.
4 that I can think of. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add. I think, the wide cheeks, usually, some carinate part of it, and then the propodial triangle being roughened. And then Cornus, those are the key characters. I think here, our most common that I tend to get are Platyperia and Integra. I get some Fragilis and some Persimulata, but the other 2 are much more common. And I'm in Indiana, by the way. So.
All right. So Claire, have you taken over?
Yeah, I'm already taken over. Do you want me to switch back to you?
Not yet. So I just wanted to make sure I wasn't interfering. I'm just going to try and get the hypostomal cavity shot set up because it might take a little bit. But so go ahead.
Okay. Yeah.
We'll come back.
So the second part of that couplet is much more straightforward. If you can't see the hypostomal carina again isn't clear enough to you, and you've got a specimen, if it doesn't have that above combination of characters, then it's going to be something other than Gonandrena. So I know that's a wordy couplet, the first part of that couplet 7, but I'm just trying to cover all the bases, and it's one of those subgenera that it doesn't necessarily have one outstanding feature that's easy to see, like some of the others have had and will have that we're going to look at. So. And these are medium-sized species.
There's a question in the chat. What are the species in Gonandrena? I think you just rattled off a couple. Were those just the eastern ones?
Yeah, those are the east. Rob, say that. Whatever you said.
We have Platyperia, Integra, Fragilis, and Persimulata. I can't think of any.
You can look them up in the Andrena guide.
Yes, and out west though, there's probably some undescribed ones.
So, are we ready, or should we move on to Cnemidandrena?
Go ahead and move on. I've got the specimen here, but it takes a little while, and I've got to get it set up. So I would say, please move on.
Okay.
I'll call you back in a sec, but I think it's worth talking. Go ahead.
Okay. So we're moving on to couplet 8, and the first part of that couplet, you need to look at the mid-basotarsus, which is pretty straightforward, usually quite easy to see unless it's broken off. And is it more or less parallel-sided, which it usually is in most species of Andrena, or is it broadened medially? And that means, so when you look at it not in profile, but from the dorsal surface, the margins of that mid-basotarsus are going to kind of bow out medially and then taper back in distally. So it's going to be, that's what we mean when we say broaden medially and not uniformly narrow. It's pretty obvious. And then the other thing about this subgenus is the tergophasia on T2, T3, and T4, unless they're really worn or all they've been soaked in some liquid, they're really dense and conspicuous and thick and very, very noticeable, not weak or anything. I mean, these stand out in the field as well as under the scope. And the propodeal corbicula is complete. Remember, Dave had that great shot last week of a complete propodeal corbicula. It's like a basket, a fringe, nice, beautiful fringe of hairs all around, almost circular. So that is present in Cnemidandrena, and that's unusual. And the other interesting thing is that these are all late season bees. There are a lot of species in Cnemidandrena, relatively speaking, but they're not spring or early summer bees. These are late season bees that all specialize on various Asteraceae that bloom late in the summer or even into the fall. So by late season, in the greater Midwest, we're talking late August into September, mid-August into September, and even into October. So that's another, because there aren't many Andrena active that time of year. So it's a fairly easy group to recognize, but that's where it stops being easy, because I think this is a difficult subgenus. There are some obvious species, easy ones to recognize, but there's 4, 5, 6 of them that are, they're pretty, I think they're difficult. So I don't know if Cnemidandrena hirticincta is probably the most conspicuous one. It's a beautiful yellow bee that specializes on goldenrod. Easy to recognize in the field, fairly widespread in the upper Midwest. Beautiful, gorgeous thing. And that's probably the most obvious and easy one to recognize. And if you want to learn what the subgenus is or some of the characters, that's a good one to look at.
I have some of those specimens, so I'll bring them up on deck, but I also have the hypostomal cavity in good view here. So if you want, I can flip back sure. So we can go back and forth. So Claire, are you going to shift me, or should I
just
share
stopped sharing? You're good.
Okay. And here we go. All right. So here's the hypostomal cavity right there. So the tongue's recessed back in here, and here is the carina lining the sides. And if I get you, Mike, this length and this length are, I have to say, I look at hypostomal carinae in osmia all the time, but never in Andrena. Are we looking at these, are the laterals?
Yes,
is that what
correct.
You call them?
Yep.
Okay.
So and that's a good shot. Yeah,
this is long compared, in relationship. So take us through it.
Yeah, relatively speaking. And again, there's a curvature. When those parallel margins of the hypostome diverge and become lateral, there's no single point where that happens. So again, there's some judgment involved here and some experience. But in general, when you look at that lateral arm and those parallel arms, the lateral one is at least as similar in length, if not longer, in this subgenus.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, that's a good shot.
Okay. Yeah, and that's cool that it's something that I had never looked at. So, all right. So Claire, I'll let you flip it back, and I'll bring up hirticincta or something similar to show the basal tarsal character.
Yeah, and on that note, as somebody was wondering if any other subgenera have that brought in mid-base tarsi.
Not that I know of. Not in the New World. I think it's unique, and Gonandrena is a New World subgenus. And I think it's there might be some that are close, but that picture that Sam had, that's the archetype. That's perfect. That's what they look like. And I don't know of any other subgenus that looks like that. Always, the lateral arms are always shorter than the parallel.
I think with this, they were asking about the mid-base of tarsus, though.
Oops, sorry. Yeah. Yes, but And in terms of the subgenus character, no, but there are species in some, at least one of the other subgenera, where there are some species that do have a broadened mid-base tarsus. But we're going to get to those eventually. So when you see the mid-base tarsus broadened like this and not narrow, that's the first thing that you think of is Cnemidandrena.
Yeah, I think the others that are broadened do not have a pronotal angle.
Right.
Like
Genyandrena. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you've got an Andrena, female Andrena with the pronotal ridge and humeral angle, and the mid-base tarsus is broadened, bingo, it's Cnemidandrena.
Although I do think isn't there a D in the middle, Schnibid or a Nimid?
I don't think so. I think it's Cnemidandrena. Now I could be wrong. It'll be the first time.
I'll look that up.
Yeah, this is pronounced in different ways. I mean,
Yeah,
Rob,
Wally pronounced it Cnemidandrena. So,
just make sure you spell it right. I hope I did.
yeah.
But why?
I don't know. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I don't know. It shows it like on Discover Life having a D in the middle.
That could be wrong too.
Yeah,
Although I think it's automatic. I mean, we're assessing John, who is a spelling freak, his system. It's not something we type in.
Yeah, I will double check that. It could be one of the many errors that have crept into this key. So, are you putting up any species in the Cnemidandrena?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got one here, but I'm just one more second to get it lined up in the scope, and I've got a good shot of the basotarsus of a Hirticincta female, and I think I need to knock the lighting back down.
You're not sharing.
Cavity.
I'm sharing.
Okay, you're sharing?
Now you're sharing. Or
Now I'm
now
sharing?
now I'm not sharing. You're free to share.
Okay, I will do that. And there we go.
I definitely think Hirticincta is one you're going to find at Goldenrod. You know.
Yeah.
Also, if you all didn't see it, Elliot posted a beautiful picture of a Cnemidandrena, possibly Andrena certa, from August in New Mexico on Grindelia flower, which is an aster family.
That's a gorgeous bee.
Yeah, they're certainly noticeable. All right. Oh, I think that's the hind leg, sorry. And I think I want to angle this a little bit more to a proper view. All right, that should be the shot. So, I need to bring up the cursor, but so here's the widened area, the basotarsus on, it's the middle,
Right.
middle leg, right?
Yep.
So I guess we should try and have another one, but they tend to be just really skinny, you know, not a whole lot wider than the tarsal segments. And in this, it's a wider.
Yeah, that's not dramatically widened. I think most people are probably thinking that. So it can be subtle.
Yeah. Like in Megachile, you get some of those much wider sort of relative things. So yeah, I mean, you just have to, that's the thing with keys is when using them, you have to be precise. Like, is it wider? Is it not wider? Not, is it a whole bunch wider? Because it didn't say that. And yeah, there's many ways to interpret a key and go down the wrong path. And it doesn't matter whether it's Discover Life or a couplet key.
And all of these just take practice looking at the right thing. So.
Yeah, the more Andrena you look at, simply the more all these characters that we're talking about make sense.
Yeah,
Just
this is a pretty pretty dirty specimen, but I'll throw it up there. And was there anything else on the specimen that you wanted to see?
Well, look at those tergites and the hair on the margins of those tergites. It's extensive and it's conspicuous and fairly unlike most other Andrena that have turbofascia. It's pretty dramatic with most of the many Andrenas.
Okay.
And in the field, I mean, the bright light on this thing doesn't really do it justice. In the field, I mean, it's just this beautiful black and yellow, amazing bee. Really something.
Yeah, this is, and I'll darken it a little bit, but the it's also, oops, the wrong way. It's also a specimen that's dirty in its own right, and also I often note that the dark hairs in the legs too.
Yeah, exactly.
Andrena nubecula and canadensis can be fairly common to regular. Andrena chromotricha, if you collect late enough in the year, like at the beginning of September on wing stem or something like that. But the others, I feel, are pretty darn rare.
Let's go to the Andrena guide and we can look at, see if there's anything reason to comment about the nemes. And we're going to, actually, we're already there. So, and this is Eastern, has these four. Yeah, this is an interesting one, this Runcinate, and that's one that is that a Physalis specialist? That's one I just haven't run into.
Well, and that and Robert Valensis may both be valid.
Okay.
Yeah, they are. At least in the bees of Manitoba and then the upcoming bees of Minnesota, Robert Valensis is considered valid species.
And Laura has specimens of both from the Great Lakes also.
Okay, and does the bees of Manitoba explain the differences? Does it give, or Michigan, or?
I think both of them tell you enough that's helpful.
Okay, we need to update the guides then. So that's a published split. Yeah. Right now we have it as Robert Valensis as a synonym of Runcinate, neither of which I see at all.
I think that's what Asher thought originally, and then it's kind of been split again. Also, I noticed that Chromotricha and Parnassiae aren't on here.
Let's see.
And it seems like they should.
We have it. We just have Massachusetts. Let's go to all the east of the Mississippi, and why did it become fewer? Let me get rid of Massachusetts. There we go. And that's a list of very uncommon things. Parnassiae is a specialist on Grassa parnassus. Good luck even finding Grassa parnassus in most parts of the country. And Peckhami, just another one I don't see.
And Parnassiae may be like lakeshore type thing is what we're thinking. So.
You mean outside of being on Grassa parnassus, is on something else?
Yeah, it seems to be, real close lakeshore type thing in Laura's collections. So.
But what was the pollen plant it was on, or is that unclear?
I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah,
so.
it's Parnassia.
Is it?
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because Parnassia often occurs in seeps on cliffs.
Yep.
And so being on a lakeshore, particularly a Great Lakes, would make sense that there would be Grassa parnassus like in those seeps. It's a habitat that they could linger for long periods of time. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Peckhami is the one I've seen the least out of these, probably.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more northern.
And is it a specialist on any plant?
It's Asteraceae, fall, late summer. It might be Helianthus, actually. I can't. But these are Peckhami and Robert Valensis and Runcinate are just very easy to confuse. I mean, those are three very tricky species, I think, in both sexes.
Okay.
If they're not in good shape, it can, you know.
And it goes by, trying to separate them out by how parallel the eyes are, which takes a lot of practiced eye looking at.
Yep. I'm wondering why Runsonate disappeared when we got rid of Massachusetts. Okay, something to look at there. All right. Claire, do you want to go back to the key, and I can continue to try to pull out specimens to look at?
I think
Okay, here you go.
I think two of the Cnemidandrena that you run across that are really easy to confuse are Nubecula versus Canadensis. But the wing membrane, the color of the wings really separates those out easily. But
yeah, I don't see Canadensis. I do see Hirticincta or Nubecula very regularly. That's probably the most common in Maryland.
Same in Missouri.
Has the darker wings, whereas Canadensis, they're clear.
Okay, couplet 9. This is an interesting one. Again, this is a subgenus that only in the east only has one species in it. I'm trying to think if there are any out west. Off the top of my head, I don't think so. So this is Genyandrena cerebrata, and this used to be considered one of the rarest Andrena in the whole country. I had never seen it except in these few specimens in museums, but in recent years, people are finding it. We found it in the middle of St. Louis, downtown St. Louis. And the males are they have this huge spine-like process coming off the cheeks. I mean, it's just weird. But the females are, in general, look like your basic Andrena. They do have the pronotal ridge and the humeral angle. But one of the odd things about this species, cerebrata, is the scutum is pretty much hairless. Even in very fresh specimens, it's not a result of wear or aging of the bee. There just aren't hairs, and that's almost all other Andrena that I can think of have some amount of hairs, conspicuous hairs on the scutum, unless they are very old and everything gets worn off. But in cerebrata, that's an outstanding feature. And again, the propodeoclavicula is incomplete, but the upper portion of it, the top part, the dorsal part and the posterior part, very thick, very dense. I mean, it stands out as a very prominent propodeoclavicula. Facial fovea, which we've talked about a whole lot, but are quite narrow in Andrena cerebrata. And there are other Andrenas that have narrow facial fovea as well, but it's always, again, stands out with this species.
And David has some really nice pictures of what a narrow fovea would look like.
Yeah, I can't remember if we looked at those last week, but it would be good.
I can jump over to them.
Yeah, it would be good to look at those, so people get an idea of the variation in facial fovea.
And I also remember we came across a couple, and I was just sort of, the thing that was most prominent to me was the incredible size and density of the scopal hairs. Like,
yeah.
What is this?
Yeah, you can't see the integument. I mean, the hairs, the scopal hairs are just poof.
It's like Melisodes or something.
Yeah.
Do we know anything about the pollen use?
Yeah, I was going to mention there is increasing evidence that it could be a specialist on Philadelphus. I think
no way.
Yeah, I think Michael Ulishin has collected a bunch this spring. I think I'm sorry, Mike, if it's somebody else, but I think it was you that I found him on collecting pollen from Philadelphus. Now I don't know any more than that, whether it's a native one down in Georgia or what. But and in St. Louis, the ones we found in St. Louis were in a yard that had Philadelphus in bloom. They weren't on it, but
right.
So the evidence that's circumstantial, but to me, that's if you have Philadelphus, especially in in any kind of a setting, it's worth looking at. You know,
were Mike's Philadelphus the native one or the non-native one?
That's what I don't know.
My impression is that the native one in the East is really uncommon. Like, you know, it's supposed to be around, but you know, you never hear of like, well, I saw some Philadelphus today. You know, it's just not there. And like the mystery of the Chelostoma Philadelphia, which certainly is on the mock orange that everyone planted years ago, but also shows up just in places where there is no mock orange.
Yep.
So, yeah, this Philadelphus thing seems odd.
It does. I'm going to email Mike after today and make sure that I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think he got some. I think he got some out of the canopy.
He did.
Is that
a couple of years ago? Yeah, he sent those.
Yeah, that's where I've gotten all mine, as in forest canopy and blue vein traps.
Yeah. Right. That's New Frontier.
Okay, facial phobia. The one on the left, and you can see the antennal scape, and then there's that kind of a dark, narrow, shadow-looking thing along the margin of the eye. That's facial phobia, and incredibly variable in Andrena females, and that one would qualify as being narrow. Some of them are 2 or even 3 times that width, and occupy much more of the space between the base of the antenna and the margin of the eye. And that's usually the standard way of measuring the width of the phobia. Is how much space does it occupy relative to the distance between the phobia and the base of the antenna.
Mike, you might want to clarify a little bit here. I think you said the dark area, and I think this is probably a Trachandrena. So I think the dark area is actually a space between the eye and the fovea, and the fovea is pretty clear, is just the pale oppressed hairs.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I mean, he takes such good pictures. He takes such good pictures that you don't, that we're not used to looking at something so clear.
You are completely right. Yeah. Okay, forget most of what I said.
So Claire, can you outline the fovea?
It's those narrow, short hairs.
Yeah, and this one's actually wider above and then really narrows below.
So
yeah, we'll talk about this. This is a unique case. There's a subgenus that has a fovea that's like this, narrow below and broadened above.
Yeah.
And
the one on the right is more of the non-Trachandrena general case of narrow. And look at the gap between the antennal base and that fovea. And that's what, in the Discover Life guys, that's generally our measurement tool.
Okay.
Which is the fossa, in other words, the hole that the antenna goes through, and you compare the resulting distance between that fossa and the fovea to determine fat or thin. And also sometimes when you're working with Trachandrena, the distance to the eye, but mostly it's in things that are not Trachandrena. So Trachandrena scavenges out some of the edge. In other words, it doesn't get that close to the eye. Most of the others tend towards being next to the eye and away from the antennal base. And that the other thing to look at, which is not visible here, is if you follow the fovea up, it remains narrow in what Mike was describing for cerebrata, and it widens out. Like you can see up here is more of a typical case where it's relatively thick below and then it gets even wider above. And in cerebrata, it's probably pretty uniformly narrow all the way up, would be my guess, right?
Yep.
Right, Mike?
Yep, there's no change in width. Yeah, it's very relatively narrow.
Erigenia is like that, too.
Yes, yep.
I think actually a lot of the Cnemidandrena have the narrophobia too.
Could be.
So this is a case where the species characters of cerebrata, it's kind of the same as the subgenus. There's only, that's it. It was like Gonandrena miserabilis. There's a subgenus, but it only contains the one species. So.
And when you have
So Sam, did you have anything you wanted to? Oh, sorry.
I don't have a cerebrata on hand. It's on the list, and so are pictures, which would be really nice.
We can make that happen.
And yeah, anyone who has pictures of any of these things, we're really happy to host them on Discover Life, and that would be obviously useful to everyone because this is a visually unique looking species.
Yeah, the male in particular, like Mike said, is just so distinctive. Wow. You're like, wow, yeah. You're just excited when you see it. So.
All right. We'll get a cressonii on deck here as you guys talk. Because that's a good and a subtle character.
Right. So couplet 10. This is a case where we need to go back and look at the pronotum. And we talked about last week that there's so many modifications of the pronotum in Andrena, and most of them could be called subtle. And it's only when you really start to see the diversity of pronotal modifications that you really start to understand how some of these characters are important and how they're defined. And this is one of them. So this is another subgenus, Holandrena cressonii, which is the only species in the East. And this is a widespread species with several subspecies, at least the way it's currently understood. And the one in the East is the typical subspecies, Andrena cressonii. There's one in the Great Plains that just touches western Missouri, which has reddish, orangish legs, typically, and that's Cansensis. And then there's one further out west. So this is a species with a lot of diversity, and it's very common. To me, at least in the greater Midwest, it's one of the most common Andrena. It's hard not to find it. And it goes to a lot of different plants. It's a spring species, late spring, maybe early summer at the most. And it seems to have very few ecological boundaries. It's just very common. I don't know if you guys see it that way, but wow.
Yeah, everywhere.
Yeah. Often in lawns and orchard. Yeah, you can pretty much find it anywhere, including I think in woodlands.
Yeah. So the females, the dorsiventral ridge on the side of the pronotum, it has a unique look, and it's not dramatically. It's not a big ridge sticking out, but it's this what I think of a crease or a pleat. And I don't know, Sam, if you're going to be able to show that.
I've got it up now. If Claire, you want to swap.
It's all yours.
Okay, let's do that. And because it is subtle, I'll try and get another specimen up too. You can see it, and then do you see it?
David said way earlier in the chat that he's ready to go all in on the pronotal characters.
All right.
Good. All right, so
if you can tell me the difference between weak and absence.
All right. Yeah. Well, here's weak. Well, here's a weak ridge versus, when you start looking for the little corners, then it becomes more difficult too. And usually when you get a specimen, Discover Life, if we've scored it for weak, we've also scored it for absent. Just because you don't want, it's so hard to see sometimes that it's easy to call something either way absent and when it actually could be weak. So usually we do something like that for both. All right, so here is cressonii, and here is this ridge running down, and I'll try and get other shots. Maybe, I don't know if I can change the, let's see what happens when I turn the,
Break the head off.
yeah. I certainly have pitched a million of these specimens out over the years, but I don't know if I can get it ready for this kind of viewing. All right, so there it is. I'm going to try another shot so that people can see it. It's almost a gimme character. When I see
Right.
something that looks like that, I look for this very subtle ridge, and then I might just confirm looking at I look at the labrum, and then the propodial triangle is relatively narrow too, and lots of pits on the hind on the tergites.
I also asks, it also the trochanteral flocus, based on Discover Life, cressonii has an incomplete trochanteral flocus, while Wilkella has a complete one. But I has trouble with those two species, especially since can never get a good look at the dorsal ventral ridge.
What was the other species you mentioned?
Wilkella.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Wilkella has the flattened clypeus, which will help separate it some, but it's also a duller bee.
And it's a summer bee, and cressonii is not. They fly at different times.
Yeah, if I see something and it's I go, oh, what is that? Because there's a bunch of bees that have lots of pits on their abdomen. And then I look and see, oh, it's June or July. I go like, that has to be Wilkella. And then I look for the for the labral process. And and then hopefully the flattened clypeus.
Then a lot of times
is a little subtle.
A lot of times Wilkella will have the reddened legs too. I know that can happen
in
cressonii too.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if the reddened legs really warrants a subspecies or is just a variant. I mean, do you guys think it's actually a molecularly different thing?
I see the red legs in specimens from Ohio, from Tennessee, all over the place. But once you get into extreme western Missouri and eastern Kansas, the red legs, 100%. So
I mean, they all have red legs.
So there's something going on. And I should know more than that, but I don't. So it's one of those things on the list to work on in more detail.
Right. So many. All right. I've got.
Oh, hey, there you go. There you go.
I've got another slightly different angle here, but it's just barely. So here the head has, so just to orient people with my cursor, which is not showing up very well here. I'll have to increase it. So mandible, the head's pointing towards the screen, and here's this subtle line that, again, it's not this really strong ridge. It's not really super well defined, but it is there. So sadly, that's the character. All right, so take it away with other things about that, and I'll.
Again, it's just if you're out collecting, this bee is going to be one of the things you collect. It's that common. The males have a very lot of yellow on the face. Usually the clypeus is completely pale yellow, and the paraocular areas are also yellow. So we'll get to males later on, but most Andrena males don't have yellow on the face. But this is one where it's got a ton of it, and it's very conspicuous.
And you can get plenty of examples, like 1 out of 100 where there's big brown splotches in the middle.
Yep.
And the amount in the paraocular area is pretty variable sometimes too.
Yep.
I have a couple from Pennsylvania that have a completely dark clypeus. So it's some weird ones. But I think the combination of the short labral process, the punctate tergites, or pitted tergites, and then that pronotal area is pretty distinctive with it.
Yeah. The macra can be something if you're in the South. So basically Maryland and the South, maybe Missouri. I don't know. Do you have macra in Missouri?
Yeah, we do. Very rare, but it's here.
And we
Yeah.
have some
So
in Indiana.
it has a much stronger ridge here, but it kind of falls out. But then you look at the tibial spurs, and it's got a really giveaway because the hind. One of the hind tibial spurs is twisted and it's real distinct. But again, it's one of those things, if you're going through it quickly and making assumptions, you could throw a lot of macra under the cressonii bus.
Well, Sam, there's only about 4 minutes left. So
That was some real inside baseball.
All right. Well, maybe I'll show, because we're just on it, show like the labral process, which is pretty, I think, thin and wide.
Thank you. Bonnie just asked to see the short label process.
Oh, there we go.
Sam's here to serve.
Yeah, exactly. We're public servants. I can find the thing.
Yeah, that's not it yet.
No. There it is. Just kidding. At this lag time. Nope, I'm going the wrong way. Where am I? All right, we're close. Got an antenna. No, good thing I'm not a surgeon. Okay.
There we go.
Is that the vein or not? So here's the labrum, and it's just always like labral process, it's always barely coming out, and it's rather wide and shallow, and it's entire. So Wilkella would have quite a bidentate tooth on that, and that totally separates it out. So I can also flip here in the last minute to what I think is another sort of like, oh, yes, the propodial triangle is pretty narrow too, which is narrower than most of the species. And you can see it's got lots of pits. It's very heavily pitted. But there's several species that have that. But in terms of like just confirming, those are the things I look for is, let me move the triangle a little bit interior here. And there's striations throughout. It's maybe a little goopy back there, but yeah, see, it's just not, so it's relatively narrow and it's not well defined with striations as a lot of other Andrena are. It's just sort of it's full, but it's meaning complete to the edge, but it's not, you'd be hard pressed to find any individual character within there. It's just a field of bumps and wiggles. Technical term. All right.
Looking good.
All right, so
we got through one more page. Not quite. Yeah,
pardon?
we got through a couple.
Be ready for Holandrena, the PTIL.
All right.
It'll be a whole class.
All right. Any other questions or anything? Yeah.
Nothing in the chat right now. You can unmute if you have something.
I think we're demonstrating that it's tricky. Just with the first, we haven't even got that far in. But there's actually, and I would say though, there's actually a lot of characters in Andrena. And and you see that reflected in, say, the Discover Life keys. There's all these characters, and the thing is, in Discover Life keys, is you never want to guess because it's so easy to get something wrong. So if you're not comfortable, there are a bunch of characters I almost never use there that are good characters, and other people prefer them. So just be careful. If you don't like a character, just skip it, go to another one. And there's many, with all the characters available, there's often several avenues to the correct answer. So another way to, in addition to looking up in Mitchell and some of the other revisions, would be to try a different set of characters and see if you come up with the same answer. Right. Not hearing any questions or
99%
anything.
of what we do. With the thank
Right.
yous are coming in.
All right. Well, thank
Okay.
you, Claire.
Well, thank you,
I'm gonna-
everybody. Rob, you'll be able to
Fails,
join
I
us.
gotta-
Mike, you'll be able to join us next week, but then there's a week after that where you can't.
Next week, yeah, I can. Yes,
Okay.
I should be here. I should be here.
And I believe so far I can next week. So my workshop's still the 18th.
Okay.
Thanks. That's exciting. We'll see you all next week.
All right. Bye, everyone. Thanks, guys. Thanks,
Hey,
Claire.
One question, Sam.
Oh, yeah.
This is not Andrena, but have you ever found Cleides estivalis in an urban garden?
Yeah, not urban, but I have been finding them just with working with other people in gardens.
Okay.
So when people do backing up, it's heuchera specialist, but this is my impression, most of the heuchera that are planted are just bastards, a million back
Cultivars.
crosses,
Yeah.
and some of these some of the species are like fall blooming. So you really, they seem to turn their noses up on it, but several times in very suburban, nondescript kinds of habitats, it's like, what's this bee? Or and they take it picture enough. And in a couple of cases, I've just gotten a specimen. There's Cleides estivalis. So I think it's one that can be brought back. But where did you find it?
Yeah, this is in the hardest downtown St. Louis, where there's no native habit. I mean, it's bricks and mortar, and there's some houses that have beautiful, beautiful native gardens, and there it is. We collected them yesterday.
Yeah. Well, one, who looks? Two, Cleides are sort of like, oh, that's a honeybee, and so I bet it's more common than we think.
Yeah.
And also, heuchera likes sort of desperate places, cliff faces and stuff like that. So a city, just another good place to hang out. So yeah. I'm more sanguine than when I started, which was like no one saw that bee. Yeah. And but now I think it's hiding in plain sight.
I think it might be. Yeah, it's good to hear.
And more people are using straight native stuff.
Yes, and that's what this was Euchera Richards and I. So it's the true native.
I have a heuchera that I found some populations on the coastal plain, just near my house on a sort of a eroding and wooded cliff face. And I'm like, what the heck? There's, Heuchera americana. And so now I've started planting it in my yard, and I'm just getting good bloom this year. So we'll see.
Yeah.
If it shows up. I mean, there's no records nearby, but on the other hand, a lot of these other cases, there were no records nearby either.
Okay. And you do have Maryland records, right?
Yeah, but I think they're all old. I think they're all from the Potomac in the gorge and Plummer's Island. So I don't think we have any recent ones. I've seen them just to the north in York County, Pennsylvania, which is on the border with Maryland, in a suburban yard, and to the south down like Charlottesville. And then there was a recent article about some people who found them near a railroad trestle in Villanova because they were looking at one of the uncommon heucheras that nested in a cliff there. And then they found this bee was still on it. And that's super urban area too.
Okay.
And it was Cleides estivalis.
Yeah, good to know.
I know Josh just got some near Knoxville on heuchera. So.
Yeah, actually, weirdly, I was traveling through Knoxville area, just went up and I'm like, I got some time to kill. Where's the nearest transmission line? Found it, found some heuchera, and there was Cletes estivalis on it too. So, all right, good to get that validated.
Yeah, tiny flowers, big B. Kind of a strange.
Yeah, and the flowers are hanging down.
Yeah, it's a strange match.
But Andrew's eye seems much less common.
I've not collected. Is that even
Northern.
Eastern?
More northern.
Northern.
Yeah. Okay.
Looks very similar superficially, but
okay.
Laura's got some good ways to tell them apart, though.
Cool. All right, more to come.
Yeah.
I've got to run. So
all right,
thanks, guys.
See ya. Thank you, Claire.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys. That was a fun after combo.
Bye.